What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the Headmaster of Hogwarts Legacy. I do think they revealed it in the gameplay showcase. Now, we got to pay attention to what they say here, because they do bring up a headmistress, and they bring up Professor Mole, which we do know was a headmistress. The timings of a lot of these headmasters and a headmistress for her is really not known all that well. We've gone on the Wikipedia page or the fandom page quite often on this channel to try to look at it, and she is probably estimated right in the late 1870s. I think 1876 is when she's estimated to have been there. And so, you know, she probably had her reign, and here we are at 1890, and it seems like she's gone. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play you guys a clip of the very first student that we talked to, the quest giver, in the gameplay showcase. Listen to what she says, and then we're going to talk about it.
I'm Nellie, by the way. I'm just so excited that the Daedalian keys are back.
The what keys?
The Daedalian keys. Surely you've seen them flying about. Rumour is that a former headmistress, Professor Mole, conjured them to protect the contents of certain locked cabinets years ago. Professor Black couldn't be bothered to disenchant the keys, and they appear every few years.
Okay, so if you listen carefully, she mentions a couple of things, right? She mentions these Daedalian keys. I hopefully am kind of mimicking how she said it, and that they're, floating around. They're all around Hogwarts, and we have to collect them. But her specifics, what she's actually talking about, is very interesting, because she says how Professor Mole was kind of behind it, and then Professor Black didn't care enough to disenchant them, and so they're still around, and that's why you have to go, out and get them. And that's the end of that segment, and then you keep going from there. And I feel like that's all we need to know. So we know a couple things from that. Professor Mole is former, because she says former headmistress. And you could say, all right, well, they call him Professor Black. But, Professor Dumbledore was a thing we heard so often in the books and in the movies of Harry Potter. It's not that uncommon to call, even though they are the headmaster, they're still, I guess they came from being a professor, or it's still just the common etiquette to call them Professor Blank, Professor Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, whatever it happens to be. And so I really don't know any other way of looking at it by bringing up Mole, who we know was a headmistress, right? So you make that very, very clear. She's a former headmistress. And then you just throw in Professor Black, and you say, oh, Professor Black didn't care enough to change it, to do anything about it, and you kept going with the conversation. Well, why would you bring in just a random professor, right? And as it's already been pointed out through the Autodesk presentation, Professor Black is not the one that has like the limp that's walking into the room. That's not him. Even though it looks like, with the hair color and all that stuff, it looks like it could be a Black descendant. It's not, and we know that because of the Autodesk presentation. So at this point, I'm very, very, plus actually doesn't it kind of fit the MO, right? We know Professor Black, not well liked when he was headmaster, right? He didn't really like the job, he didn't really like the students, and they really didn't like him back. So it kind of almost, you get that vibe off of this girl telling you, this information. So I'm willing to call it right there that it's him. I just don't. My biggest thing to stand on is I don't know why you would bring up him when you just talked about, you bring up a headmistress, you say she's a former, and then you bring up this new professor who didn't do anything to change what the old headmistress did. So why would you bring him up if he's not a headmaster? He kind of has to be, in my opinion, from there. That's kind of it. This is a short video, straight to the point. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, if you think it's him, or if, they're really playing some mind games with us. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. All my social media links are in the description if you guys want to check any of those out. And I hope to see you all on the next one.